Benjamin Moore was a quiet teenager, often overlooked by his peers. He had always been the boy in the back of the classroom, the one who never raised his hand and never stood out. His slight frame and bookish appearance made him an easy target. In a small town where everyone knew each other, Benjamin's life was a daily struggle to stay unnoticed. His tormentors were led by Ryan Cooper, the school's star athlete. Ryan, tall and muscular, exuded confidence and arrogance in equal measure. He was the leader of a group of bullies who found amusement in making Benjamin's life miserable. Their bullying ranged from cruel pranks to physical intimidation, leaving Benjamin in a state of constant anxiety. One fateful afternoon during gym class, Ryan and his friends decided to up the ante. They cornered Benjamin in the locker room, mocking his inability to fight back. Ryan pushed Benjamin into a locker, the cold metal biting into his back. "You're pathetic, Moore," Ryan sneered. The humiliation was unbearable, and the other students' laughter echoed in Benjamin's ears long after the incident ended. That evening, Benjamin retreated to the safety of his home, his sanctuary. His parents were loving but often absent due to their demanding jobs. He found solace in his attic, surrounded by old books and relics of a bygone era. As he rummaged through the dusty shelves, he stumbled upon an ancient book titled The Art of Revenge. Its leather cover was worn and the pages yellowed with age. Intrigued, Benjamin opened the book and began to read. The contents were a detailed account of psychological and physical tactics for retribution. It was a dark, fascinating world that spoke to the deepest parts of his wounded soul. Desperation and anger took hold of him, planting the seed of an idea that would soon consume his every thought. Over the next few weeks, Benjamin's resolve hardened. The bullying did not stop, and each new incident only fueled his determination. He began to see himself not as a victim, but as an avenger. His nights were spent studying the art of revenge, memorizing its tactics and strategies. He knew he had to change both mentally and physically. Benjamin started working out in secret, building his strength and endurance. He practiced self-defense, learning how to protect himself and strike back if necessary. His mind became a fortress, fortified with knowledge and fueled by a burning desire for revenge. He meticulously planned his moves, studying Ryan and his gang's routines. He noted their schedules, their favorite hangouts, and their personal lives. He discovered Ryan's darkest secrets, things that could ruin his reputation if they were made public. Benjamin was patient, knowing that the right moment would come. Benjamin's transformation was gradual, almost imperceptible to those around him. He became more focused, his gaze more intense. He still played the part of the quiet, submissive student, but inside, he was a predator lying in wait. He created an anonymous online persona, Shadow, to begin his psychological warfare. Through this persona, he started spreading rumors and leaking small pieces of information about Ryan. It started with harmless gossip, but quickly escalated to more serious accusations. One evening, Benjamin hacked into Ryan's social media accounts and posted compromising photos and messages. The next day, the school was abuzz with scandal. Ryan's friends turned on him, their loyalty crumbling under the weight of suspicion and betrayal. Ryan's once unassailable position began to deteriorate. The initial success of his plan bolstered Benjamin's confidence. He decided it was time for a more direct approach. He left a series of cryptic messages in Ryan's locker, each one more ominous than the last. They were written in a style reminiscent of the ancient book he had found, filled with riddles and threats that hinted at a deeper knowledge of Ryan's secrets. Ryan's paranoia grew with each message. He started losing sleep, his performance in sports declined, and his grades began to suffer. The school administration noticed the change, but could not pinpoint the cause. Ryan's friends, once his greatest allies, began to distance themselves, fearing they might be next. With Ryan isolated and vulnerable, Benjamin intensified his psychological assault. He used his knowledge of Ryan's fears to manipulate him further. He left eerie recordings in Ryan's house, whispers of secrets only Ryan knew. He staged encounters that made Ryan believe he was being followed, watched, and judged. Ryan became a shadow of his former self. The confident, arrogant bully was now a nervous wreck, constantly looking over his shoulder. He lashed out at those around him, his temper flaring uncontrollably. The school's golden boy was falling apart, and everyone could see it. Meanwhile, Benjamin remained in the background, his transformation complete. He was no longer the invisible man. He was the unseen force, the hand of retribution. He watched as his tormentors' lives unraveled, each one paying the price for their cruelty. The culmination of Benjamin's plan was a carefully orchestrated confrontation. He sent a final message to Ryan, luring him to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The message was simple: "Come alone, or everyone will know your darkest secrets." Ryan, desperate and terrified, had no choice but to comply. The warehouse was a relic of the town's industrial past, a vast, echoing space filled with shadows. Benjamin had set the stage perfectly, using the environment to his advantage. As Ryan entered the warehouse, the door slammed shut behind him. The room was plunged into darkness, and a single spotlight illuminated a chair in the center. Benjamin's voice echoed through the space, distorted and menacing. "Sit down, Ryan." Ryan obeyed, his hands trembling. Benjamin emerged from the shadows, his face hidden by a mask. He placed a series of photographs in front of Ryan, each one capturing a moment of his cruelty. "Do you recognize these?" Benjamin asked, his voice cold. Ryan's eyes widened with horror. He stammered, trying to find words, but Benjamin continued. "You've hurt a lot of people, Ryan. Now, it's time to face the consequences. You have a choice. Confess your sins to the world or live in fear of what comes next." Ryan broke down, his tough exterior shattered. He chose to confess, hoping for some semblance of redemption. The next day, he stood in front of the entire school, admitting to his actions and apologizing to those he had wronged. It was a moment of catharsis, both for Ryan and for Benjamin. Benjamin watched from a distance, a mix of satisfaction and emptiness within him. He had achieved his goal, but the darkness that had consumed him during his quest for revenge lingered. He realized that he needed to find a new path, one that would bring him peace. Years later, Benjamin had transformed once again. He became a counselor and advocate against bullying, using his experiences to help others. His story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. He had turned his pain into a force for good, and the shadows of his past no longer haunted him. He knew that true justice was not about revenge, but about healing and making the world a better place. And in that realization, Benjamin found the peace he had long sought. Despite the redemption he had found, Benjamin Moore's past continued to cast a long shadow over his life. He had become a renowned counselor and advocate against bullying, but the scars of his journey were still fresh. He often wondered if he could ever fully escape the darkness that had once consumed him. Benjamin's work as a counselor brought him into contact with many troubled youths. One of them was Emily Harris, a 15-year-old girl who reminded him of his younger self. Emily was smart, introverted, and constantly harassed by her peers. Benjamin saw in her the same spark of resilience that had once driven him to fight back. Emily's tormentors were a group of popular girls led by Jessica Turner, the queen bee of the school. Their bullying was insidious, often taking the form of psychological torment. They spread rumors, manipulated social media, and isolated Emily from her friends. Benjamin felt a deep connection to her plight and vowed to help her in any way he could. Emily first came to Benjamin's attention when her concerned parents brought her to his counseling office. They described a bright, creative girl who had lost her spark. She had become withdrawn, her grades were slipping, and she had even mentioned thoughts of self-harm. Benjamin listened, his heart aching with the familiar pain of recognizing a kindred spirit in suffering. During their sessions, Emily opened up to Benjamin about the relentless bullying she faced. She described the cruel notes left in her locker, the social media posts mocking her every move, and the isolation she felt as her friends distanced themselves to avoid becoming targets themselves. Benjamin listened, offering empathy and understanding, and slowly began to help her rebuild her confidence. As Benjamin worked with Emily, memories of his own past began to resurface. The strategies he had used against his bullies now seemed dangerous and reckless. He realized that he had to guide Emily carefully, helping her find strength and resilience without resorting to the same dark paths he had once walked. One evening, as Benjamin sat in his quiet office reviewing notes from his sessions, he received an anonymous letter. It was a chilling reminder of his past, written in the same cryptic style he had used during his quest for revenge. The letter warned him that someone was watching, someone who knew his secrets. Benjamin's heart raced as he read the final words. The shadows never forget. Benjamin's initial reaction was one of disbelief and fear. He had taken great pains to leave his past behind, to reinvent himself as a force for good. The idea that someone had not only remembered his actions, but was also intent on bringing them back to haunt him, was almost too much to bear. He knew he needed to act quickly to protect himself and those he cared about. The letter marked the beginning of a new and terrifying chapter in Benjamin's life. He became increasingly paranoid, suspecting that someone from his past was seeking retribution. His work with Emily continued, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Benjamin began to notice strange occurrences. His computer would glitch at odd times. He would find things in his house slightly out of place, and he received mysterious phone calls where the caller would hang up without saying a word. The sense of being constantly surveilled wore on his nerves, making him jumpy and anxious. Despite these fears, Benjamin remained focused on helping Emily. He introduced her to a support group for bullied teens, where she could share her experiences and find solidarity with others who had faced similar challenges. Emily began to regain her confidence, slowly but surely, and Benjamin felt a sense of accomplishment in her progress. However, the peace was shattered when Benjamin received another letter. This one contained photos of him and Emily, taken without their knowledge. The message was clear. His past was catching up with him, and now Emily was in danger. Determined to protect her, Benjamin intensified his efforts to uncover the identity of his tormentor. In his search for answers, Benjamin turned to an unlikely ally, Ryan Cooper. After his public confession, Ryan had struggled to rebuild his life. He had faced legal consequences, lost his scholarship, and had been shunned by his former friends. Now he was a changed man, seeking redemption in his own way. Ryan was initially reluctant to help Benjamin, still harboring resentment for the way his life had been destroyed. But when he learned that Emily was involved, he agreed to assist. Together, they began to investigate the source of the letters, retracing the steps of their shared past. Their first meeting was tense. Benjamin and Ryan met in a quiet coffee shop, the air heavy with unspoken emotions. Ryan looked older, wearier than Benjamin remembered. The fall from grace had taken its toll on him, leaving him with a haunted look in his eyes. "I didn't expect to see you again," Ryan said, his voice filled with bitterness. "Why should I help you?" "Because this isn't just about us," Benjamin replied, his tone firm. "Someone is targeting Emily, and we need to stop them before it's too late." Reluctantly, Ryan agreed. They began to piece together the clues, revisiting the events of their high school years and identifying anyone who might hold a grudge against them. It was a painful process, dredging up memories both had tried to bury. As they delved deeper, Benjamin and Ryan discovered that the person behind the letters was someone they had both overlooked: Max Turner, Jessica's older brother. Max had been a silent observer during their high school years, watching from the shadows as his sister and her friends tormented others. Max had idolized Ryan and had been devastated by his downfall. He blamed Benjamin for everything, believing that Ryan's confession had ruined their lives. Now he sought revenge, using his skills as a hacker to terrorize Benjamin and Emily. The revelation about Max was a shock. They had never considered him a threat, seeing him as just another bystander. But Max's obsession with avenging his sister and restoring Ryan's former glory had driven him to extremes. Benjamin and Ryan started digging into Max's life, uncovering a web of lies and deceit. Max had built an online persona, Spectre, through which he orchestrated his campaigns of terror. He was a master manipulator, using technology to stay several steps ahead of them. The confrontation with Max was inevitable. Benjamin and Ryan tracked him down to an abandoned warehouse, a grim echo of their past. The warehouse was a relic of the town's industrial past, a vast, echoing space filled with shadows. Benjamin had set the stage perfectly, using the environment to his advantage. Max had prepared for their arrival, setting traps and using his technological prowess to gain the upper hand. As Benjamin and Ryan entered the warehouse, they were met with a series of obstacles designed to disorient and intimidate them. Max's voice echoed through the space, taunting them with reminders of their past mistakes. "You thought you could escape the shadows," Max sneered, his voice amplified by hidden speakers. "But they've always been with you. You can't outrun what you've done." The battle was intense, a struggle not just of physical strength, but of wits and strategy. Max revealed his deep-seated anger, his belief that Benjamin and Ryan were responsible for his sister's downfall and his own miserable life. He had spent years planning his revenge, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Benjamin and Ryan navigated the traps, their movements coordinated by years of shared experience. They finally cornered Max, who had nowhere left to run. The confrontation was brutal, a raw display of emotions and pent-up rage. In the end, it was Emily who saved them. She had followed Benjamin and Ryan, determined to help despite the danger. Her courage and quick thinking turned the tide, allowing them to subdue Max. In the aftermath, Benjamin faced a choice: seek retribution or offer forgiveness. He chose forgiveness, recognizing that continuing the cycle of vengeance would only lead to more pain. He extended a hand to Max, offering him a chance to change, just as Ryan had. It was a moment of profound transformation, a testament to the power of redemption. Max, broken and defeated, accepted Benjamin's offer. He agreed to undergo counseling and to make amends for his actions. Benjamin and Ryan watched as he was taken into custody, knowing that the road to recovery would be long and difficult for all of them. The experience left Benjamin and Ryan forever changed. They continued their work, helping others overcome their pasts and find their own paths to redemption. Emily became a symbol of resilience, her story inspiring others to stand up against bullying. Benjamin knew that the shadows of his past would always be a part of him, but he had learned to live with them. He had found peace in helping others, turning his pain into a force for good. And as he looked toward the future, he felt a renewed sense of hope, knowing that even in the darkest times, there is always a path to the light.